My brother, 22, had medical problems. I, 30, won't say what it is because it's so painful to even type it out, but his health would deteriorate until he could no longer do basic things like walking and breathing on his own. It was harsh on our family. We had the financial ability to help him, but his condition was just unable to be helped. He had a girlfriend, 22, when he was 19. He just suddenly introduced her to the family out of nowhere. I got weird vibes from her, but I chalked it up to being suddenly sprung on with that info. The truth is, my brother had severe facial atrophy. Realistically, women aren't attracted to him, and girlfriend was the first girl he really liked. She was with him 24/7 and she took care of him in bodily functions and she seemed to love him very much. Everyone accepted her and thought she was a very nice woman, and we were overjoyed when she became pregnant. They got married, and when she gave birth, we fell in love with a baby. Unfortunately, the marriage didn't work out and they divorced within 6 months. They had split custody of the baby, but she got more time cause she was the mother and nursed him more. He paid child support. He passed away when the baby was almost 2, and his death drove the family and her apart. We were grieving too hard. We would help her out with money since she does work but isn't earning too much to give the baby a comfortable life. Not long ago, she went on unemployment and asked us for more money. She's active on social media, so I do see her being desperate for money. What I have a problem with is she was already with another man no long after my brother died. There were questionable pictures on her Instagram. Turned out he was her on-off boyfriend, but they broke up already. Long story short, I tested out my suspicion and got the paternity on the baby on the grounds of child support fraud. The baby wasn't my brother's, it was the other man's. All 3 of us went to court. I was fighting her claim on my brother's money and sued her to get the child support back. The other man is trying to get custody of the baby because he wanted to be a father to his baby. She fought my case on basis of my brother being the baby's father figure, and she fought the other man's case, saying he didn't have the financial means to support the baby, while using her case against me to say that if she gets money from me and my family, then she can support the child. I don't know what world she lives in, but that's nonsense. The court ruled in my favor and ordered her to pay back the amount of child support my brother gave her while he was alive. That means she's got a record in her file of a crime and she got jail time. She was forced to give up custody to baby's father. Now everything had settled down and I'm not as vindictive as before. I feel terrible for doing this to the baby. She was a good mom, I give her that. I guess I was just pissed she took advantage of my brother's kindness. You are the idiot only because you never thought of the baby and only saw your rage for what she did to your brother. What's done is done, but you should have just told her you knew of the affair, cut off any more money, and tip of the bio father. If she was a good mom then, why make things harder on a 2-year-old who lost the only father figure she knew? All bets are off when young children are involved. Your family clearly didn't need that money back, and your brother likely loved that little girl like his own, and probably would not have wanted to take it back regardless of DNA. You got a paternity test for her child without her knowing. That's a huge violation. There's nothing here saying she absolutely knew he wasn't the father. She's grieving too and going through a lot. It sounds like this is you and your family's way of taking out your anger that he's gone on someone. You are not thinking of anyone but yourselves. That child knows her and needs her. You literally took away that baby's stability. Your brother was dead. It's quite possible she thought it was the brothers. In any case, what did suing for that money bring you? What did ripping a child from its mother bring you? What does her having a criminal record and jail time bring you? She may have cheated, but you admit she genuinely cared for your brother for years. You did the right thing because she cheated, but you and I both know what you did was cruel and pointless. Also, a baby needs both parents. Custody should be shared between mom and dad equally as possible. My parents had me when they were 18. They broke up when I was 6 weeks old. Their relationship was toxic and they were never able to get on the same page with parenting even years after the breakup. But both settled into their own styles and things they allowed and didn't allow. From a young age I was naturally closer to my dad. He had his own things he was strict on, being nice to others, being independent and always respecting the rules of the household you are in, but in general, he was more lax than my mom. I do love my mom, but we are nowhere near as close. She met her husband when I was 6, and there has always been a weirdness over what he was to me. He wanted to be dad. I didn't ever think of him as that. I think he is way too strict on so many things and I never liked him interfering in my relationship or time with my dad. I always felt it was not his place. Things got bad between them when I was 10. My dad took me on vacation with my extended family and I had a great time, but my mom was pissed because she had my half-brother while we were gone and I wasn't there. She felt my dad should have skipped the family trip and taken me somewhere another time. She blamed my dad when I didn't want to hold the baby when I did meet him. But 10-year-old me thought it was weird and he looked weird. My stepfather got a job at this Christian company when I was 15 and he lied to the boss about me being his daughter so he could look like a good Christian. They had the boss over and wanted me to keep up with the lie. But when I called him his name and the boss overheard I was honest and it created issues with him and the boss and I was on their crap list for a while. My mom asked, would it really have killed me to go along with it for one night? She apologized after, but I know she was genuinely hurt I didn't love him enough to do it. The hurt was even worse because I liked my dad's girlfriend and was good with her, but not really good with her husband. I graduated high school in the summer and now I'm a college student. Around the time I was deciding where to go my dad got offered a job where I had a college opportunity. I told him to take it and we moved together for this next step. But I never told my mom that he was moving too. She found out and she and her husband are hurt. My mom asked how I could leave them behind like that. How could I choose him over them? That I had the same opportunity there. She told me I should have been honest with her because they could have prepared for the hurt at being told once and for all who I love more. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It's petty for your mother and stepdad to be hurt or feel that you loved your dad more because your father is moving to the same town where you will be attending college. Your love isn't a competition. Your mother has spent the majority of your life failing to comprehend that your stepfather was her choice, not yours. I will never understand why adults go into blended family situations thinking only of what and how they want the relationship with their stepkids to be, with no thought to how the kid feels. You have done nothing wrong here. You're doing what's best for you, and your mom is making it about herself. It sounds like she didn't have a problem with you moving out of state until she heard your dad was going to be there too. Clearly, her issue is with your dad, but she is dragging you in the middle of it, saying things like how could you choose him over us is complete bullcrap and putting you in a position that no kid should ever be. You are old enough to decide where you will go to college and to move out on your own. Keeping it a secret. Yeah, not really a nice thing to do, but I wouldn't put you in the idiot category for that. I will ask you, though, how important is having a relationship with your mom? Now that you are an adult and free to make choices, perhaps smooth our feelings while also setting boundaries as an adult. As the mom of grown children, I can tell you the emptiness takes a while to get used to. I, 31, am engaged to my fiancé, 31. His family is very wealthy and he has his own money as well from Bitcoin, so we're getting a prenup. We are in the United States. I found out recently that a few years ago when we started dating he talked to one of his female friends about a prenup. She was about to start law school and started the conversation. It hurt me to find out one of his friends brought that up so soon. I asked him not to discuss the prenup with her without me present, as I assumed they would talk about it again now that we're engaged. She came over with a few other people last week and they discussed it privately again. I found that out today, although one of his friends mentioned seeing them deep in conversation outside that night. I asked him what they were talking about later that night and he said nothing. The prenup has been stressing me out, so I had asked him a month ago to get started on it. She recommended a lawyer at her firm and he spoke with him today with the door closed. He has been squirrely about disclosing his assets and inheritance with me. Things that have to be disclosed in the prenup, etc. I brought up that I asked him not to talk to her about the prenup without me present and he blew up at me, saying that he's working on the prenup like I asked and that he will continue talking privately with her about the prenup. It became this big fight. I expressed that I was uncomfortable with them talking about this alone and he said, well now I have to start over because you don't like the firm I picked. I thought you wanted to get this done. She will not be his representation, she just works at the firm and apparently will be privy to a lot of info about the prenup. According to him the whole firm will be involved in the prenup. It was my understanding that each partner works with a single lawyer for the prenup. He decided to work with her firm without me telling me. I told him he violated my boundary about talking to her without me about the prenup, and he said that's not a boundary and he can talk to whoever the hell he wants. Now he is saying that he won't talk to her at our house without me there, but I feel really upset at this point and don't know if I can believe him. He is still mad at me and lashing out while I just feel betrayed and sad. Am I the idiot for not wanting him to discuss our prenup with her if I'm not there? He is working on the prenup like I asked, but he is also doing it the one way I asked him not to. I know he's not cheating, but I don't feel like this is something he should be talking about with her, lawyer or not. It feels personal and private. Everyone's the idiot here. If you're trying to get married and prepare legal documents, you should act like mature adults. This garbage about who is talking to who, childish. Fighting over the steps in the process and how many people are privy, childish. Not being able to be open with your supposed life partner about a financial arrangement you both agreed to, childish. You two aren't looking too hot right now. Agreed. She's clearly okay with there being a prenup and everything that goes along with that. For example, that his assets are his and don't all become theirs when they get married. As such, he has every right to discuss his assets with whomever he wants. That she doesn't want him discussing it with that particular woman who happen to be in the friend circle makes me suspicious that there's more to story than OP shared. Regardless of that, to be charitable, maybe she doesn't want him to discuss it in the friend circle for some reason, like embarrassment. Which, of course, she is free to ask, but I don't think she has a right to demand. Not the idiot. Prenups are totally fine and legitimate options for many couples. But he's being secretive about the prenup itself, it's just weird and controlling, and he seems really obsessed with making sure you don't see any of his money. He can protect his assets and still be open and communicative with you about your prenup. I wouldn't marry the guy personally. Recently, my father returned home from overseas after spending several years away, and the whole family, extended included, got together to throw a party to celebrate his return. Clean up the house, put up decorations, cook a banquet, the works. I myself took some time off to drive around town to get the supplies, blow up balloons, hang decorations, and even assisted my mother in the preparations for cooking. Among the dishes my mother was making was a rather special one for me, as I have good memories of eating it with my dad, so I was pretty excited to eat it alongside everyone else. Problem is, the day my dad landed at the airport, myself and a few others were supposed to go and get him, but at the last second, we all remembered that my dad adored a certain pastry that's only made by a bakery across the city. Wanting to make the day perfect, I volunteered to go and grab it, even though it'd probably take an hour and a half. Well, through a series of misfortunes, it ended up taking several hours to get there, and by then the store was closed. Thankfully, we knew the owners and I called and begged him to open, which he did, so I was able to obtain the pastry. I called home and told everyone that I'd gotten it and to wait until I got back so we could all eat together. When I got home, I found the food was over, with everyone having drinks. Unfortunately, the food I'd been wanting to eat alongside my father had been eaten by everyone else. My mother had saved me a minute portion of the meal, however. After the heartwarming reunion with my dad and while catching up with him, my mother offered me the food she'd saved, but I refused it and claimed I wasn't hungry. For the life of me, I just didn't want a single bite of any of the food that had been prepared. Instead, I just gave the pastry to my dad as a surprise and refused to take a bite of that either. Overall, it was still a great time, except for my mother constantly asking and eventually begging me to at least have 1 or 2 bites, with everyone else also asking me to eat. My mother privately confided in me that she understood I was peeved, but she'd spent so long making it, and if me, her only child, wasn't eating it, she'd feel like she'd done all that hard work for nothing, even if everyone else had eaten. I told her that I wasn't mad at all, and that I just wasn't hungry. To be honest, I'm pretty sure that was just bullcrap to guilt me into eating. I wouldn't take a single bite of that food, or anything else really, for the rest of the day. I suppose I was angry at everyone having been thoughtless enough to have started eating without me, even when I'd asked them not to. Instead, I just let my displeasure be felt and not heard. Am I the idiot? You're the idiot. Your dad just came back from overseas, and you wanted him to wait just for you to come back so he can eat. This day was supposed to be more about you celebrating your father coming home and less about you. Super childish to refuse to eat out of spite and probably ruining the mood for everyone there just because you didn't get your way. I get why you were upset that things were in full swing without you, though the joy of your dad being home probably should have sidelined that, and that you wished your mom had saved more food for you, but I wouldn't expect people to wait hours to eat if I couldn't get there, even if I was running a fully endorsed by everyone secret pastry mission. If you were mad, said you weren't, and decided to punish your mom with passive-aggressive behavior, instead of being honest and then moving on, you probably ended up ruining some of the experience for your mom. Maybe you feel that's justified. But it's one meal. So, instead of making sure you were there to see your father after being away so long, you just had to go on a ridiculously long errand to fetch a pastry instead. Did it not occur to you that the pastry could wait until after you saw him, that maybe you could have gone together to get it? And then you behaved like a child and refused to eat because how dare the rest of the family not wait for several hours to eat with you once you arrived back with the world's most important pastry? Maybe you should have paid more attention to your father returning home than going on a pastry side quest. You're the idiot. I, 42, and wife, 38, had a real tough few years. In 2017 we had a late-term miscarriage. In 2019 we had an early-term miscarriage. It took everything in us to try again after the first pregnancy. After the second we were just emotionally done. A few months ago she discovered reborn dolls and asked me if it's okay if she saves for one. They are dolls that are made to look like realistic babies and toddlers. I found them a bit odd, but also kind of interesting from an artistic point of view. What's the harm in a doll? So I said of course it's fine. She finally saved enough money for the one she specifically wanted. It's pretty expensive because it's apparently a good one. It breathes and has a heartbeat and spit bubbles. When the doll arrived 2 weeks ago it soon became obvious it's an unhealthy coping mechanism. She takes care of it by feeding it and changing its diaper and having it sleep in a Moses basket in our bedroom. But not only does she pretends it's real, she expects me to also. She gets upset with me if I don't call it by its name. I've started to do this now for her, to her, because it's not a big deal. But she wants me to also refer to it as my daughter. She wants us to take it out with us to the store, etc. And she wants me to pretend to bottle feed it and bathe it. I've refused to do so. I've told her therapist my concern, but she believes it's a healthy coping mechanism. I don't know about that. What I do know is I'm not playing make-believe with a doll. I explained to her as gently as possible why I want. I told her it's her right to pretend it's her daughter, but it's my right to not. I told her I'm sorry for any hurt or embarrassment I may cause, but I'm standing my ground on this one. She is still very upset with me and has withheld basic affection. I'm both terribly concerned about her well-being and for our marriage. I also feel like a horrible husband who is hurting his wife. Am I the idiot? No idiots here. It's been 2 years and this is a new development by the sound of it. I think couples or family counseling may be helpful for both of you with a therapist she is not seeing privately. Grief is deeply personal, obviously, but you're also grieving a loss and shouldn't be forced to play along with things that make it any harder for you to also heal. This sounds like a slippery slope to me, and I think another opinion is absolutely valid, especially someone who can coach you both here in individual and shared healing. It would be one thing if she just liked to hold the doll sometimes, sitting in a chair or something, as a means of self-comfort. Pretending the doll is real is one step away from a serious psychosis. She needs a different therapist, or maybe her therapist doesn't realize how obsessed she is about it. As a woman who recently lost my son to stillbirth, first I am so sorry for your losses, and second, there is no way those dolls are a healthy coping mechanism. Someone else linked the website and looking at it made me feel a little sick. I understand how your wife feels, but she needs to try and process her grief, not replace your baby with a doll. Again, I'm so sorry, and I hope you two can work through this.